Hey web developer friends, in today's video we're going to be doing a tutorial all about background videos for web pages. There's a bunch of little nuanced things with background videos to make them work just right, and we're going to cover those things here. You can see a completed version I've already got running for my background video. I've got this Pepto-Bismol brained video on loop, and I've got it taken up the full screen and it's centered perfectly. So let's see how I did it. I'm going to close this out. All right, to begin with here, I have my blank HTML document. The first thing you want to do when you're going to create a video is we're simply going to add a video tag, or a video element. We are going to make this. There's a couple different ways you can use a video element. We need to define the source of the video file we're going to use, and for now we'll just say source equals background video that I've already got saved here. And let's see if we load just this, if we get anything. Okay, so this does display the initial frame on our screen, which is good, but it's obviously not a video that's working. There's a couple things here. Number one, it's not centered. Number two, we've got some odd margin and padding up here in the top left and right. And number three, of course, it's not actually playing as a video. So let's figure out what we need to do to actually get it to autoplay, center itself, and remove margin and padding. So let's add in a some style rules up top. To get rid of the margin and padding, one of the easiest things you can do, although not recommended if you have a large site because it does take a little processing or loading time then, but is to simply use the universal selector, this star symbol right here, and just that basically selects all elements, and you can say margin 0, padding 0. And that just defaults the browser. So the browsers by default have padding and margin built into elements, which each browser is a little different with that. So I like to reset it when I'm creating a site so that it works the same across all browsers. So if I just refresh here, we've got rid of that padding and that margin that we saw on the left and the top. So we've accomplished the first thing. All right, so we've got our video here. Now, you notice that I put the source element in as or source attribute directly as part of the video element tag. And you can do that, but we're actually going to not do that. So we're going to take that source element out, and we're going to create or source attribute we're going to remove, but we're actually going to create a source element. And the reason why is because we need to define two different sources, because we're going to call two different source files. One is going to be a WebM file, which is really a file format that's optimized for video for the web, of course. And then there's a default file format. We'll use an MP4 file, which for any browser that doesn't yet support WebM, and I'm assuming it's probably like older versions of IE, maybe Firefox don't support WebM. I could be wrong about that. But there are browsers that don't support WebM, and if that's the case, then they will load the MP4 file. So if we go source as a attribute here, we're actually going to then, or as an element, we're then going to add an attribute for source as well. So the first one, and it does matter the order, you have to do them in the appropriate order. So we're going to say source equals, we want the WebM file to be first. And we do need to tell it what type it is. So we go type equals video whack WebM. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing down here. Source equals background video.mp4. So here we'll do our mp4 file. So we've got the WebM first, the mp4 file second. And again, we got to define the type equals video whack mp4. All right. So if we refresh our browser, let's see if we've got any updates. Nope, still no updates. But we did change our source destination by using a source element. So we move this over here. The video still loads, but it's still not autoplaying. And we were going to add some controls with just some simple attributes in the video element itself. So these are going to go in the parent video element, not in the source element that we created down here. So in the video element, the first thing we want to do is just use the attribute preload. You don't need to do equals any sort of value. You can do auto metadata or none. But if you just type in preload, the browser already knows that you want it to be auto. And we're simply telling the browser to, we think the best user experience is going to be if they preload that video. We want it to autoplay. So you just type in autoplay, and again, you don't need to use an equals for any sort of controls. You just type in autoplay, and it knows that you want it to autoplay. And then here's a big one, muted. And the reason why you want muted is because this is a background video, meaning it's going to run in the background of maybe other content that you create. So you might have text or other images or whatever it may be on the top of your web page, and you want this video to run in the background. Now, because it's in the background, users are not going to have controls. So they're not going to have a stop button, a play button, a pause button, etc. And because they don't have those controls, like a sound control directly in the browser, you have to tell the browser that it is muted. Otherwise, browsers won't let you play this video. If you don't give your users controls, most browsers automatically stop background videos from playing. So this is key to get it to autoplay, as you have to have it be muted. Even if the video has no sound in it, you still have to tell the browser that you're muting it. So we'll do that. Video preload, we want it to autoplay, and we're going to say muted. All right, so let's refresh here, see what happens. Okay, we've got our video playing this time. You can see this time I refreshed. It starts the video right up. Looks like it played it once. So we want this to be on a continuous loop. Now, I intentionally went out and selected a video that worked great for looping. Some videos work better than others for looping. If you don't have it be perfectly sequenced, there might be a little glitch or whatever as it plays. But to do a loop, you just simply type loop. And again, you don't need to do any equals, true, false, etc. You just type in loop. So now if we hit refresh, it's going to play once, and it's going to play twice. So it'll just keep doing this endlessly, right? There's no telling it to run a certain number of times. It's either it's looped or it's not looped. And the next thing we want to do is we want to tell the browser there is a poster. And what the poster attribute does is if there's any reason why the video can't load, or while the video is loading, so if there's low bandwidth or a low speed connection for your website visitor, if it cannot get that video to load, it's going to load the poster instead. So I've already created a poster. It's over here, poster.png. And what I usually do when I create posters is I simply have it be a screenshot of the very first frame of the video. And the reason why I do that is because it'll display that, and then it'll seamlessly start the video at the exact same spot. So to the user, there's really no difference between a screenshot of the first frame and the actual beginning of the video, right? So if we refresh this time, you really won't see any difference, but it does actually load a video, or that poster.png file, a split millisecond before it starts playing the video. So it's very handy. All right. So this is great. We've got our video playing. It's playing on loop. It's preloaded. It's muted, but it's still not centered. It's positioned to the left and the top, and we really want that experience to be centered regardless of the use. So if I was on a mobile device, right, it would look something like this, and that's not a very good experience. I really want the action of what's happening here to be the centered focal point. So we're going to add some style to this. We already got our style tags created up here. You know what? Let's give our video element an ID. I could just use the video element up in my style, but let's assume that you're on a bigger site and you've got a bunch of different elements. So I'm going to give it an ID of Greg's BG. And up here I'm going to use a hash, of course, because it's a unique ID, the ID I just created, and I'm going to write my style rules. So let's start by saying display block. We want this to display in a block fashion. We want the position to be fixed. And we just do those two things and refresh. It continues to play, but we still haven't actually adjusted it left or top, right? So it's still not centered. So there's kind of a trick here. You go top, 50%, left, 50%. I'm going to pause there and refresh this, and it's going to move the video on the screen. All right, so now we know the dead center is right here. So that's dead center of the current web page, and if I resize it, you'll see that that center doesn't change. Okay, and now we need to actually transform the position of that element, of that video element. So we're going to do, let's see, WebKit dash transform. We're going to use the translate X. So the X coordinate, we're going to do negative 50%. And then we need to do the same thing with the Y coordinates. We're going to translate Y, oops, no space there, negative 50%. And this is specific to WebKit browsers. You want to write the exact same style rule for non-WebKit browsers. So you just take out the WebKit piece, and now it's just transform, translate x, negative 50% and translate y. So that's just those coordinates. We're telling the browser that those coordinates are in a different place. So now when we refresh, it's adjusted the browser perfectly centered because we told it to move it down 50% and lift 50%, but we also told it that the coordinates for those for the x and y are also have a negative 50% value. So it adjusts the video so that it's centered perfectly. So now if we resize our video, it keeps that content nice and centered where we want it to be. Right? Okay, so this works great on a standard web page, but what about mobile devices? So there is a couple tricks here. First of all, like we said, you have to have that muted attribute added in here. There is another attribute that you need to add in, and it's just plays inline. So this attribute right here, plays inline, and that is going to be required to get it to play autoplay as a background video on any mobile device. And so now, if we refresh, let's go here and inspect. And we'll look at it as a, this is what it's going to look like on an iPhone view, or an iPad, right? So you'll need that plays inline attribute for it to actually play on a mobile device appropriately. All right, there is one more thing here actually. If I go back, I should have pointed this out here, but if you go back and you inspect, we've got some margin up top here. So margin here, and we want to get rid of that. We want it to be full screen. So full screen is really simple to achieve. We're just going to do this. We're going to go min, width, 100%, min, height, 100%. So now if we refresh, there we go. This is how I want it to look. All right, so now if we have the viewport size of an iPhone 6, 7, 8, this is what they're going to see, right? And we got rid of that white margin on the top and white margin on the bottom. What I would like to see the HTML language adopt is the ability to change the speed of a video. We've got some great controls in here with looping, preloading. We can get the poster in. We can mute videos, but there is no ability to actually change the speed at which that video plays back. And it would be great if they just added some simple attributes in here that would allow that to happen. But we can, of course, accomplish this with JavaScript. So to do this with JavaScript, it's a really small line of code. So we're going to go script, and basically what we want to do is go document. Oops. Want to get that element, so we're going to get that element by ID. It was Greg's VG, so there it is, Greg's VG dot playback rate. And if we just say 1 is equal to the default playback rate. So if I hit refresh, nothing's going to change. However, if I change this to 0.5, or even just 0.5, playback rate equals 0.5. It's going to reduce the playback rate by 50%. See how much slower this is going now? And depending on the quality of your video will really dictate how much you can play with this playback rate, how many frames per second. If you have a video that's got a low amount of frames per second and is a lower quality video, this will get really choppy. And actually, if we lower this down even further, you can see what I mean. So if I bring it down to like 20%, so 0.2, you can see here as the pink brain drops in, it kind of comes down choppy, right? So you don't want that, but you could slow it down a little bit. You just have to play with the different values. You could do hundredths as well, so 75%, right? You can also speed up the rate of playback. So you could do playback rate of 2, so this would be twice the speed. So I'll hit refresh. This is twice the speed. And it increases, so you can do 3 times the speed. You can see where this is going. What's weird though is that it maxes out at 16. I don't know why 16, it's an odd choice, but if you go up to a playback rate of 16 and hit refresh, this is as fast as it'll go. Right? That's really fast. Anything higher than that, if we change the playback rate to 17, it just puts it back to the default of 1. So playback rate, it's an invalid number. Playback rate goes just back to a standard. This is that speed of 100%. So your values are really anything from like 0.01 to a value of 16 times the playback rate speed. Kind of weird, but there you have it. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, leave me a comment if you have any questions, or let me know if you liked it, and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.